Hey guys, it's PJ and welcome back to Shift Society. Now the topic of today's video was actually going to be some Mustang content because I have so much stuff that we need to do to the Mustang, but unfortunately it is filthy and I hate working on like a crazy dirty car for obvious reasons. So we're going to do another mod to the Corvette today. Now if you watched the last video, we installed a steering wheel that came off of a 2012 ZR1, kind of upgraded the interior a little bit, and I guess you could argue that this is another interior modification, but it's also a driveline modification. Surprisingly enough, this car actually has better factory shifters. It actually feels pretty good to me. But where this is a T56, it doesn't have the upgraded short throw of the TR6060 that came in the 08 and up C6s. So you kind of have this very long throw through all of the gears. Plus, it's very sloppy. I mean, this car just turned over to 100,000 miles. Some slop is expected, but that is in first gear. I'm going to assume that the bushings in the shifter itself are pretty worn out, and it's kind of the same thing in about all of the gears. Not very tight, but it does shift very well. Like I said, it's actually one of my favorite stock shifters because even though it has a little bit of play, it's still a very smooth actuating shifter. So what we're going to be doing today is upgrading this shifter to an MGW X-Spec flat stick black knob with the blue cap. So it'll kind of tie in the outside of the car a little more with the inside of the car, since we do have a little blue stitching on here and we have some blue stitching on the steering wheel now. Bring a little more blue into the interior until, well, we're going to bring a lot more blue into the interior here soon, but that's a topic for another video. So as with about everything, I like to lay everything out. Have our invoice. This is our actual flat stick shifter assembly. Like I said, we did get the blue stick with the black ball. So there is the shifter mechanism. This is our shift ball, and this is the top of the shift boot cap that will fit around the flat stick. And the ball, like I said, is the black gripper ball with the blue 6-speed logo on the top of it. We have some hardware, and they actually give you the Allen wrench that you will use pretty much on everything. And of course, they give you an awesome decal. And in this white box is the actual shifter assembly itself. Comes with all of your foam. This is your alignment tool, thing of blue thread locker, a sheet of Dynamat Extreme, and this is our lower unit that we will be installing into the car as well. So here's kind of an overview of everything that it came with. We have the MGW shifter itself. We have our gripper ball shift knob, Dynamat. This is the hardware with the Allen wrench and the little gasket Loctite. This is the alignment tool with some more hardware, and this is the lower shifter mechanism that will go into the car as well. So now what we need to do is go ahead and pull the center console out. I've actually showed this in several videos, and there's several other videos on that exact topic, so I will link the other videos in the description below. That way you don't have to sit through and watch me remove that when there's so many other videos that show you in detail exactly how to remove the center console. All right guys, so we got the center console off and I've got it just laid to the side, luckily, where I replaced my cigarette lighters with actual fast charging USB outlets. Plenty of room to just set it over to the side. So now we're left with this. That being said, I'm not sure if there was supposed to be a little dust cap that goes over top of this. I know in one of the videos that I watched to learn how to do this, it had a dust cap, but that being said, it was also an 08 nut model, so I'm not sure if the 05, 06, 07 has it or not. Anyway, we're going to take off these 10mm nuts. For some reason there was one missing, so I'm not sure if the previous owner has already been in here and messed with the shifter, but we do want to make sure that the shifter is in neutral for all parts of this. So after we get those off, this dust shield will just kind of lift up off of here. Okay, so our dust shield is actually on underneath this. For some reason, the other video showed it on top of this. But this right here, I do believe that we will be modifying. This dust shield here has obviously seen better days as it is split in half. Now it looks like there is Dynamat all on this shifter for whatever reason. Previous owner did tell me he did put an upgraded clutch in this. It has a Monster LT1S clutch in it. So I think it's good to like 1,000 horsepower, which I don't know if we'll ever be pushing. But I'm going to have to peel this Dynamat off of this so we can get the stock shifter out of here. So I peeled off the old Dynamat. Like I said, it was probably put on from the previous owner just to reduce some of the heat because the torque tube is literally setting right inside of this. Probably dampens some sound as well, but we will be putting some more back in there, but in the proper location. So now the next thing to do is remove these 4 10mm bolts that actually hold the shifter into the bottom part of the base. So now that we have the 4 bolts removed, just grab a hold of it and it will lift right up out of there. And surprisingly, that bushing in kind of decent shape. The new shifter should perform and look a whole lot better. So let's keep moving on. So after you get the shifter out of there, the next thing to do is loosen up these 3 Torx 40s. There's only 3 of them. So like I said, I think it's a Torx 40. So I've already got these loose. All right, guys. So after you get those 3 Torx bits out, this right here just literally slides off of that right there. This is actually your torque tube right here. This is a good time, if yours is as dirty as what mine is, to go ahead, get you a rag and wipe all of that down, because you will be putting some sound deadening on the torque tube before we put this thing back together. Now here is the bottom assembly. That is your linkage right there. So we will be removing the linkage from this little housing, so we do have to take off these Phillips head bolts. So I went ahead and wiped down the torque tube. As you can see, it's much cleaner, and also wiped down the walls of the trans tunnel right here, because there will be a piece of foam that goes back in there. So now we need to take the lower shifter base over to the bench and start swapping some parts over. So like I said, you want to remove the 2 Phillips head screws from the end of this little linkage cover. Mine was missing one for whatever reason, but like I said, the previous owner, or one of the previous owners, have been in here, and well, I don't think that they, you know, really did the due diligence to put this thing back together correctly. So that could be why there was so much slop in my shifter, but I've heard that complaint from numerous others, so that's probably not the case. Anyway, remove these Phillips screws, and then we'll pull this linkage completely out. All right, guys, so after you remove those 2 Phillips screws, that cap just pops off of there, and you can slide your little linkage out. As you can see, this one is rusted and everything, so I'm going to try to get it cleaned up the best I can, and then we'll install it into the new base. All right, guys, so I've got the little cap took off of the new base assembly from MGW. I used the supplied T-handle wrench to take out the 4 Allen head bolts from this. So we got this cleaned up, so now we just have to install the linkage into the new bushings and make sure that these have enough grease on them. All right, so we got the new linkage installed in these bushings. There is a lot of grease inside of these little bushings, so whenever you install them through it, just take the grease and just make sure that everything is lubed up well and it slides easy. So you'll want the long side, if the bolt holes are on the right side, you'll want the long side going forward. That way, whenever you put everything back together, everything is in there the way that it's supposed to be. So now we can go ahead and install our Allen bolts back into the base, and then go and do the Dynamat and the foam on the torque tube before we start the reinstallation process. All right, guys, so we've got this installed, and it's just so smooth. And you could add, you know, extra lube to these, but like I said, this is well lubricated and has an amazing feel to it. So I can already tell that this shifter is going to be so much better than that factory unit that we're taking out. So let's go ahead, move back to the car, take our foam pieces and our Dynamat, and get the trans tunnel lined out. All right, guys, so now that we have the sound deadening and the Dynamat down in there, you just want to make sure that you're not going to run into any clearance issues with your linkage. So just make sure that your heat shielding and everything isn't overlapping right here, and you shouldn't have any clearance issues at all. And we use the other piece of heat shielding over here on the left side of the trans tunnel. Again, just make sure it doesn't come up too high, or you may run into clearance issues again. We need to go ahead and install this. So like I said, make sure that this little notch is actually facing the driver's side, because you actually, one of the 3 bolts that hold this in actually catches that linkage and holds it into place. So once you have that linkage reconnected right there, we can go ahead and install some thread locker on our T40 bolts, Torx bolts, and go ahead and get them threaded back down. All right, and once you've got all 3 of those, just hand tighten them. Do not tighten these up yet. So make sure that the base can move, because we actually need to use the supplied alignment tool to make sure that we have this in perfect position. All right, guys, with the supplied alignment tool, we're going to drop that right into the middle of that linkage, and it's got 2 bolt holes that we're going to line up. We have 2 little bolts with the supplied Allen key, so we're going to bolt those down. That way we can find true center for everything else, and once we do, we can go ahead and snug these down. All right, so that's what the alignment tool looks like bolted down. So we'll want to start with this T40 Torx bolt and get it tight, and then we'll tighten up these 2, and you do want these pretty tight, just don't break them. All right, so all 3 of them are tightened. Be sure to go back and tighten this one again. You'll want to tighten it first, tighten these 2, and then make sure that this one is tight again, because sometimes it can loosen up a little bit as you're tightening these. So once that is done, you can go ahead and remove your alignment tool, and it's almost time to put the shifter itself in. All right, so after we got all of that, we have this little flimsy rubber gasket that will sit right there. Just be sure sure that the mounting surface is about as clean as you can get it. And then the next step will be to actually stick our shifter base down in it. But I'm going to use some of this grease, make sure that the inside of that is completely coated, and then put it down in there. So I'm going to put you guys down for a second, stick this in there, and then I'll show you what it looks like mounted. All right, guys, so our shifter has made contact. So now we just need to take the supplied hardware and go ahead and mount our shifter down to the new base. All right, guys, so we got the shifter bolted in. So the next thing that we need to do is modify our little dust cover. So basically all we're going to do is take a blade and cut right there at that lip, because the MGW has its own. So basically all we need to do is get rid of that part so that what's left snugs up against that. All right, guys, so after you get it cut, it should fit pretty much flush right down onto the MGW dust shield. So now we can go ahead and reinstall the 4 10mm bolts that hold that dust shield down. All right, guys, so all you do with the shift ball is literally screw it on there. You have a little Allen head locking screw on the back of this, so just get it pretty much lined up and it'll be ready to go. So that is the complete shifter install. I do have to put just a couple little interior pieces back, but other than that, we are good to go. So I'm going to take you through the gears. I mean, the throw is just so much lower. No slop really in the gears at all. So, I mean, it's just... it's very, like I said, bolt action like. All right, guys, so that's going to be it for this video. Hopefully you like the install of the blue MGW X-Spec flat stick shifter. So far in the past 2 days, we have did the upgraded wheel with the blue stitching. Now we have the MGW shifter with a little bit of blue on it. So we are going to be, like I said, adding some more blue to the interior. Not too much, but it should look really, really good. It might be a little too much, but this car is a little too much. But guys, be sure to smash that thumbs up button. It does help these videos get seen, and it does help the exposure of the videos. If you want to kind of get a behind the scenes look of everything that is happening that doesn't make it to YouTube, head over to Instagram. This is my car page, so there's a link to my personal page, which you will find all the behind the scenes stuff. But if you want your car featured on the car page, DM me the highest resolution picture you have of your car, and I'll be sure to get it featured. And last but not least, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button. We are on our way to 5,000 subscribers, and the channel is growing more every day. So I appreciate you guys so much. Hopefully you guys like the Vette build so far. We are going to do some Mustang stuff here soon, only when the weather cooperates. Filthy, like I said, and I hate to work on a dirty car. It just makes things so much worse. So I want to get it cleaned up, and then we'll get the Mustang mods. And I'll see you guys on the next one.